What's going on, guys, and welcome back, and happy post-Mother's Day to all of your mothers out there. Don't know how many moms are watching the Snapchat, but happy Mother's Day. Today, we're going to be talking about Sage, the newest card to hit Marvel Snap. Is she the most slept-on card this month, or does she simply suck? Alex and I are going to break down her synergies, what we think about the card, and then we're going to talk about probably one of the most surprising OTAs that we've had in a while. Ultron got buffed, and we had Darkhawk get nerfed. There's a lot to break down there. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the new trial mode in leagues, the direction of Snap, and kind of all of our thoughts around the game as a whole. We're going to talk about that all today, more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Alex Kocha after our season premiere of Blink and Nocturne, and then we headed into a crazy OTA that I don't think anyone was expecting. We had some Twitch drops for X-Men 97, buddy. How was the week, and how you doing?
It's been an absolutely crazy week. Crazy week. The amount of Marvel Snap I've been playing, the amount of Marvel anything that I've been playing over the last couple of weeks. A lot of time spending with you, playing a lot of different games, stuff like that. Can't wait to discuss that. But honestly, a lot of gaming this week. The meta is completely fresh. A lot of brewing I've been doing, and I love it. I honestly love it. I love the idea of like playing against a diverse set of decks, even if it's Ultron. 9 out of 10 times, because Ultron got buffed. And everyone's like, Ultron's back, baby. And then everyone wants to play it. And I'm like, all right, guys, let's settle down on the Ultron a little bit. But it's been a fun little week.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's crazy because, listen, Snap has been a ton of fun. Anytime a new season starts, I love just like the initial climb. But then on top of that, yeah, we've done rivals, and we'll talk about that later. But one thing I will say about that is Snap is a very solo game a lot of the time. So it's just been great to be able to like foster and connect on the friendships that we've made and be able to just like game together in any capacity. And it happens to be in Marvel, which is extra fun, right? And so definitely love that, man. But we've got a lot to break down on this side of the Snapchat. What are we talking about on your side?
Cozy, we're going to be doing our full review on both Blink and Nocturne. 2 cards came out last week. We're going to be breaking down both, doing statistics, and giving our overall impressions. We'll also be discussing the state of series drops. It has been mentioned in the developer Q&A. They intend on doing some series drops soon, and we're going to be interested in kind of, well, what might they be dropping? Should they be dropping tons of stuff? Maybe just a little. We'll be discussing that. And then, of course, our Snapchat mailbag.
Bro, we look like we're in like the tracksuit mafia right now, like in like rival mafia gangs. You've got your blue and white. I've got the red on over here. What did this is a question for you. What did you wear in high school? Like what was your style? Were you always a tracksuit Adidas guy?
Literally, my tracksuit is from high school.
You're fit into that?
Yeah, dude. Okay, it's funny. When I was like in 9th grade, I was basically like just above 6 feet tall. And my parents were like, he's going to be like 7 feet. 9th grade was like the peak. I just stopped growing. And then like I just hit my full size in 9th grade basically. And all my clothes still fit. In fact, my wife has pictures of me and her together, like when we were in high school dating, and I'm still wearing the clothes I wear today. And the only reason why I don't have my entire collection of clothes that I've had since high school is because my wife will like sneakily throw things away once they've disintegrated.
Oh,
you know when
yeah.
like you wear in clothes and pants and your undie pants just to the point where you're like, it's perfect. My wife will throw them away when they get to that point.
My wife,
it's heartbreaking.
My wife always throws away like old gyms, man. I'm like, oh yeah, that shirt that I've like, it's not even like a great shirt, but it's my shirt. It's what I've been wearing for. Here's the thing, same thing. I was like the shortest kid in my class, funny enough, like growing up for a long time. And then it was around freshman year, dude, I shot up like a foot, like straight up. It was like my growth plates were screaming. Like it was excruciating. I felt like I was going under like a Captain America like experiment pod, but I could relate with that. Dude, I wore a lot of band shirts. I don't know why, like Linkin Park or something. I don't know why, but I had a lot of the. Were you ever an Abercrombie, American Eagle kind of guy?
No. I was never like a go to the mall and buy something type of person.
Yeah.
I literally just owned tracksuits to the point where like I remember my brother, he was over at my house at some point. He's like, Alex, I just need to borrow a shirt. He went into my closet and he was like, dude, everything has stripes. He's like, there's nothing I can wear here. It's just all tracksuits, right? Different color tracksuits, but it's all tracksuits. He's like, I can't wear any of your clothes. This is stupid. He's like, how do you even dress yourself?
I wish I grew up sometimes in well, I don't, but in today a little bit, because I'll tell you what, kids now, they can wear like Dragon Ball Z shirts and it's cool. You know what I mean? Back then we wore that stuff, you get beat up, you're done, it's over. But now it's like, it's cool.
I know, you're right, man. Like anime is completely turned around. Like when I was in high school, if I was wearing like a bedazzled Dragon Ball Z Goku leather jacket, I would get like stuffed in a locker, man.
Well,
you know what I
you
mean?
might
And
still
now I
with
would wear it proudly.
Bedazzle. I almost want that to be made for you, like a what is it, like the Kamea with the jewels on it? You know, okay, I see it, man. Or the Dragon Ball itself, maybe. I just want a giant Frieza on my back. Anyway, yeah, dude, definitely fun. But we got a lot of cards to break down today. I'm excited to talk about both Blink and Nocturne. And funny enough, people ask us all the time. We kind of pivot back to Snap. Eventually, Alex and I will do like an extra subject somehow or another and extend the podcast. We actually have some plans in the works, so check back on that later. But for now, let's go to talk about the new card of the week, man, in Sage. Well, for those that don't know, Sage here is a 3-cost, 0-powered card with the ability on reveal plus 2 power for each different power among all other cards here. So obviously, unique power, kind of like unique cost from Miss Marvel. Unique power is going to power up Sage here. And if you guys don't recall, I'm pretty sure she was the lowest rated card for both of us when we looked at all of them. However, there's a lot of good cards this month, so we're going to break down. I have as the title, is she this month's sleeper, right? Because if you look at her text, she definitely does have some capabilities. We were worried about a couple things. We're going to break that all down, but let's, of course, start with our initial impressions and star ratings. Alex, are you kind of sticking with what you had last week? Are you still a little bit hesitant here? What are you feeling?
Last week I came in at 4.
You
And
did for Sage?
I'm-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I came in at 4 for Sage. I believe I did. Did I not?
I thought we were 3. I thought we were low. Oh,
I was
no,
going to say, because I'm feeling more on 3.
I feel like maybe you were lower on Namora, and maybe you were higher.
I was
up on
definitely
Sage.
low on Nomura.
Yeah,
Like
that's-
okay, in my notes I wrote that I said 4 for Sage, but I'm actually going to relate that back down to a 3. And the more I thought about it, the more I think this card has the potential to pop off. I think what holds it back is that it's Red Guardian you can play like on curve, and you're very confident in it. Sage, you're never playing on turn 3. You're never playing. This is a turn 6 card. This is a turn 5 card. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's going to hold the card back. It's
Yeah.
a 3 cost that you're never playing on 3, and
Okay.
that I think takes a little bit off of it for me. So I'm going to land at a 3-star rating.
Yeah, so I've got oh man, this card, it's cool because you read the text, you're like, okay, like, it has some pop-off potential. This is what makes me hesitant. I have the pros and the cons. The cons is the card that's can replace this card the easiest. No question about it. We all have a card. You have it in your collection right now, and I'm going to tell you, you probably don't play it. I'm going to be honest. Even in the decks you could and should, and it's Wolfsbane. Wolfsbane's a 3-1. That's similar in vein. If you have 3 cards at the location, what you would probably want to do with Sage anyway, it's a 3-7, right? And you're just getting that kind of for free. No one's playing Wolfsbane really these days anyway. It's kind of the closest neighbor or cousin to Sage, if you will, in some light. I think Sage is primarily a combo card, right? I think she has some really great pop-off potential. But that's about it. But to your point, I don't see her as this catch-all amazing card. So I'm probably going to give her about maybe a 2.5. Maybe 2.5 with the potential of combo. You're going to get those games where you have crazy Sage, and we're going to have some cool synergies to talk about today. And I think there's actually some great synergistic cards with her to make her pop off. But as we know, man, it's a game of consistency. It's a game of if you even draw Sage and then you need to draw the other cards. Can you play Sage? Did your opponent, we've talked about, we don't like where, you have to go off what your opponent has played and what you've played. That's my initial worry.
It's funny that you bring up Wolfsbane, because Wolfsbane was one of the things that had been kind of sitting in my mind while I was trying to evaluate this card and trying to determine where I wanted to place it star-wise. And originally, because of my experiences with Wolfsbane, I had Sage at a 4. But the more I thought about Sage and its ability or inability to be played early, I dropped it down to a 3. But Wolfsbane is a surprisingly powerful card. I think it's one of the more slept on cards in Snap. I'm telling you the truth, and if you don't believe me, I got footage of me bringing Wolfsbane's consistently over 30 power in like Wong Odin decks, where like you're going wide with like White Tigers, and people are looking at this Wolfsbane, they're like, I don't expect this Wolfsbane to do much. And then all of a sudden, you Wong Odin the Wolfsbane, and it's just ramping vertically, right? And so like, I think it can be a very surprising card. And I use it as an attack vector to go wide with White Tiger, vertical with the Wolfsbane. And I feel like Sage could be similar to that. Its on-reveal ability has, like, the sky's the limit with this. Like, honestly, it has incredible power potential. And I just wonder, though, the different powers, when playing it, is it going to be trickier to ensure that there's going to be different powers? Or is it going to be easier? Because, I mean, there's a wide range of powers in Snap. But I kind of want to get my hands on this card to see just how easy this effect is to pull off.
I agree. The thing is, with every on reveal, not every, but for the most part, yes, we can say Wong, we can say Odin. You're not doing Wolfsbane, Wong, and Odin all too much, and usually we already have combos that work to great extent. I mean, just the pure basics of the second season pass in Black Panther. There you go, Wong, Black Panther, Arnim Zola, the classic, if you will, does enough for 2 lanes instead of Sage for the 1. However, you bring up a good point. Is it going to be easier or harder there to get that unique cost? How often is that going to happen? I'm sure I could chat GPT something together with all the powers in the game and kind of like the average meta in Marvel Snap. Is there different powers? I've looked through a lot of the meta decks, and there is a lot of unique power in there, to be fair, and within the game. Some of her synergistic options, you lessen the amount of unique power in there, right? And we'll talk about those in a moment. But there are some cards with extreme pop-off and ones where I think she's immediately going to fit into. And the first one I want to bring up is going to be Bounce. I straight up think that might be one of her best homes. I think the Bast Bounce, you got a 0 power card here. You Bast that. She's up to 3 to start. And then you're able to bounce her back in the hand and play her twice. And then you've got yourself a card with a lot of ammunition that kind of just flows with the deck, right? We've talked about this. If it's doing what the deck needs to do and is already doing, it's great. Sage and other decks, I feel like you're kind of playing the Sage game. Whereas in the Beast Bounce or Bast Bounce deck, I do think she's going to have a bit more of a home. And that's probably like my initially favorite spot for her.
I love that you bring that up because that's actually one of my major beefs right now with the game and with Sage in particular. I think that the Bast and Ravonna interaction needs to be fixed. I don't know if it's working as intended. I feel like Ravonna should be taking into consideration the base power of the card and not the Basted or buffed power of the card, because you often have synergies and decks that want to use both Bast and Ravonna but can't because they step on each other's toes. And I felt like Sage, when I was trying to design my decks around her, I was like, okay, with Sage, I want to use Ravonna, and I'm looking at Bast, but I'm like, I can't put them in the same deck.
Yeah.
I don't really agree with that. And so I'm really glad you start with Bast there, because my other synergistic card would have been Ravonna. And I think that Ravonna can do a lot of very interesting things, but I would have really liked to see a deck that's using both Bast and Sage. Of course, you can go the Ravonna route and you go like the Goblins, which should provide unique power, but I just think we're missing out on some deck building opportunities in the game with that interaction working the way it is.
Well, I think, okay, so Ravonna is most definitely almost not a requirement to run Sage, but you almost want to, right? Because you're getting yourself now a 2 cost card, and now you're talking about some really big burst potential for nothing, for an on-curve play, literally. Ravonna into Sage, it's going to be her best friend. But on top of that, tenfold, we got Mr. Negative, which is that deck you're probably talking about in the synergistic of do you play Bast, do you not? Ravonna and Negative is awesome, but then you can't Bast that anymore because it kind of messes up the entire deck. You can look at it as an either-or option. If you don't draw one, you get the other. But sometimes it's awkward because you get both and you don't know which one to go with. And even more so, Bast is a 1-drop, and you can play it on turn 1, and then the entire curve just doesn't really flow together. I do like the idea, though. Let's just go into the Ravonna route, but Mr. Negative as well. The Jane Foster Negative deck hasn't gone anywhere. You got another 0-cost card in here. You've got a Ravonna card in here that works with Mr. Negative. You have a Negative card in here that has extreme pop-off. And then on top of that, what do we like in those decks? Cards that can go super vertical, and then we spread them with Arnim Zola. Or you can just mess around with the other combos that you have within the deck. I think right there, that's going to be the winner, and that's why it's a 2.5 card. But it has some huge burst potential in those decks that are already pretty strong. But I think Mr. Negative, we know what he is by now, and she does fit into that mold pretty well.
Yeah, so like Negative's like the classic pop off, oh, you're actually going to go into turn 6 or 7 against me deck, right? And Sage will work perfectly there, especially when you think about like what some of your key pop off synergies would be, like Iron Man, which is going to be a 0-5, Mystique 0-3. Then you have the 0-3 Sage, she doesn't count herself, so it doesn't matter that it's the same power as the Mystique. And all of a sudden you drop it, it's just like a huge power burst, right? So yeah, 100%. And it's, listen, actually your Jane Foster decks, and don't forget Jane Foster just got buffed.
Yeah.
Your Jane Foster decks have some of my favorite. Honestly, they've been some of my favorite, and I think you can squeak some Black Panther in there, some Zola action as you mentioned. You got yourself a pretty solid list.
And then I love it because Noel's in there, and so you play a Destroy deck, you're like, great. Like no matter what, great. Yeah. And that's obviously we have other cards with more synergy that can work. Blink, we'll talk about her, but she just kind of works everywhere, and especially in Mr. Negative to some points too. Now we have another way to kind of do a last-second negative play to maybe get a turn 6, card, and so there's a lot of synergy with Sage, with Ravonna, Mr. Negative with Beast. I think those are the best combo homes for her outside of clearly on reveal, Alex. Surfer. Do you think she's a Surfer card, or do you think she has no place in the archetype?
You know what? I was giving a lot of thought about this. Like, Surfer is actually one of my absolute favorite archetypes in the game, to the point where, like, I play it if I'm just looking to have fun. Like, if I'm just chilling and I want to just enjoy a round of Marvel Snap, I'm going to my Surfer deck. I don't care if I can win, lose. It's just what I want to play, right?
Yeah.
So I gave this a lot of thought. I think there's potential, because generally speaking, the way Surfer's being played right now is you're usually having like a 3-drop on turn 6, right? Usually you play your Sarah on top of the Hope Summers, so you have the option of a Surfer and Absorbing Man. But most importantly, that first card you play is usually that tech piece that answers a question or a problem you have in the game. It could be Killmonger, right? It could be Polaris. It could be, I mean, heck, it could be Negasonic. It's usually something that, like, oh, here's the surprise piece and then my power combo. But Sage is just straight up additional power. But on turn 6, you're able to position in a way where you can hopefully gain a lot of, like, just straight up surprising verticality. It's similar to what I think Sebastian Shaw does. Sebastian Shaw and Surfer, especially if you can double proc with these the Silver Surfer and Absorbing Man, feels like it can go way more vertical than most other cards and what most people would expect. To the point Sebastian Shaw could outpower a Red Hulk.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested in seeing Sage as kind of like a nice closer. But I'm hesitant because I often feel like that one extra card you get on that turn 6 pop off of Silver Surfer, you often want it to be something like a Killmonger or some sort of answer you need for the current game.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I do think I like the uniqueness of what she could bring to Surfer. Like, you know, Ironheart doesn't always make my cuts, right? But in this case, it's like, okay, if I play Ironheart early, I give a couple power to some cards that usually didn't have that, and now we have more and more unique power, right? Like, there's unique power is the goal. And so I think that you do have a placement there. Shaw, you just brought up another card. He's scaling up past the norm of a 3 cost. Hell, even maybe a Surfer early, right? Same thing. You're able to boost unique power and then play regular cards. And then even, Sarah is a 5/4. And so, you know, we have we have a good amount of 3/4s, but I would say most people are playing the 3/5s in their deck. You know, Nocturne was a great addition to Surfer, but it's going to be interesting. Brood is a must, and Brood just does nothing for her, right? So, you know, you definitely want Wolfsbane in that. I'm definitely going to try her in it. I'm interested to how she's going to work in there. I do want to say, because we brought this up last week, all right? And then a couple people are like, all right, they're still on the copium train. Listen, you said Ravonna. I got to bring it up. The fact that you can pull off Sage with Grandmaster for 3 cost total is something unique. It's something cool. Tell me, right? She's getting +2 per unique, right? Per unique. Only committing 3 cost to that seems pretty lethal, even if it's on turn 5.
No, you're right. Like, it's the potential's there. That's the thing about Grandmaster. The potential's always been there with Grandmaster, but it always feels like copium. Like, it's just like he feels like, all right, guys, we did the combo, right? We did the combo. Now let's get rid of this card because it's making the deck crappy. You know what I mean? Like, I totally feel, man. I want Grandmaster to be legit, and I think that, like, there's often these cards that come out where, like, man, is this the time? Is this the time? But you're right, because you could technically Sage on curve. Maybe on top of, I mean, ideally, if you have like a Nebula and a White Widow with a Widow's Kiss on the other side, you play her down there. That's pretty legit. And then, unfortunately, if you play the Grandmaster, you have to 50-50 the hit versus like, oh, do I hit White Widow or do I hit the Sage? But the nice thing about that is if you're putting a White Widow in the center as well, that's beautiful. If you happen to proc the Sage again, send it to the middle, the only problem is there's going to be nothing there. So you'd have to do it later. I just realized. Right? You'd have to do the Grandmaster play later. It'd have to be more of a closer.
I feel like Grandmaster, he does play a lot like Mr. Negative. You got to know what you're going in with. Like, if you're going in with Grandmaster pop-off combos. And what do you do with those decks when you're playing them, right? You go all in on the hand that looks good. It's legit like poker, right? Like, you're going all in on the hand that looks good. You got to get out if it doesn't look good. You know, Mr. Negative, you've got to understand you're going to lose 1 by forfeiting. Lose 1 by forfeiting. Win 8 by the guy that shouldn't have stayed. Win, lose 2, lose 4, win 16. That's how that deck works. It's climbable, but that's just the archetype, right? And I think that is purely a lot of combo decks. We have a lot more safer combo decks, but that's kind of, my general feelings on Sage almost, right? Like, I think that she's going to have that pop-off. I think she'll be a bit more flexible than those cards. I just don't see her being used all over in all of the decks as a crazy option, especially in the meta that we're kind of sitting in right at this moment. But is there any other combo cards you got in mind?
The thing I really want to ask you is what do you think is a fair baseline for Sage's power? Like, if you're playing Sage, and even if it's on turn 3, for instance, you're playing on top of Nebula and White Widow, which I think would be a great combo for her. Like, where do you want Sage to land? Like, for me, I think if Sage can consistently be a 3/6 with essentially no downside, that's probably fine, right?
Yeah, it's legit either the opponent playing 2 and you playing 1, just 3 cards on the board, hoping obviously they're different costs, which again, there's plenty of 1 power, 2 power, 3 power lines that can be in there. I feel like 3/6 is the line you should easily be okay with walking away with. We've gone through this with so many cards where you just want to build up the power, you want to get up there, you want to see big number, better person, but go with the 3/6. I think 3/6 is that baseline. 3/8 should be achievable. It should definitely be achievable. And then again, in those rare games, like I think people are gonna be rewarded by patience with Sage, right? Like you're gonna want to play her on curve right then and there, or you wait. But that's the problem. It's not a perfect world of Marvel Snap, and turn 3 hits, and guess what? You only have Sage to play, and you're like, dude, she's only gonna be a 3/4. What do I do? I just play her? Which then if you're doing like a Surfer deck, okay, take the 3/4, right? Take the 3/4 at that point. But there's not a lot of decks where you're gonna have that value, and you can like bump it up later with Surfer or whatever that might be. Which is our initial impression on Sage. We said, when do you play her all the time? Like, I think it's easy to telegraph it, but it's also hard to, or not telegraph it, but it's easy to, for us to sit here and say a perfect game of Marvel Snap when you'd optimally want to play her. But will that work out in live games?
You know what? Now that you're saying that, and I'm like listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking on my own here, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'd want to play her for a 3/6. I think it needs to be higher. I think she needs to be close to a 3/8 baseline because for a 3/6, you have the downside of her basically being a 3/0, right? And I mean, I'd rather just play Polaris. I'd rather just play Nocturne. I give up 1 power for that baseline level of consistency. I think it's probably better for when you're holding Sage and nothing else. If you're holding Sage, Silver Surfer, and Absorbing Man, you're gonna like, what do I even do? Do I skip turn 3? You know what I mean? Like that feels terrible. Whereas you can just tempo out a Polaris.
Yeah, no, agreed. And like people will say or think like, well, why are you saying Mr. Negative? Because all you're really gonna do probably there is Ravonna on 2. Then what do you hope your opponent plays the other cards when you play Sage? No, because Mr. Negative is all about last turn pop off, right? And so we are gonna have that. And speaking of last turn pop off, I've got Sarah down. Again, I really do feel like Sarah is a decent Sage card as well. Combine that with Ravonna if you want to. That value for Sage, there's not a lot of 3 cost that I like in Ravonna or in Sarah decks. Not Surfer decks, but just Sarah decks. I feel like Sage can bring that heat a little bit. You're gonna have to look at archetype by archetype of when you're actually gonna play her. I do agree. I personally think 3/6 is probably fine, depending on like if I have a 3/6 available on turn 3, I'm playing it. Like depending on the deck. To your point,
yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Yeah, if I had Polaris, though, maybe not. But
a question that I have, though, that I don't think we have an answer for, I was hunting for it in Q&As and stuff, is how initiative would affect this card. I think that's an important consideration as well, because if their cards are face down and non-revealed,
it won't count.
They can't count towards the potential power increase, right?
Yeah,
so you'd want to give initiative to ensure that they're face up, so they're different powers, so that Sage can kind of come down and benefit from those cards being in play. So is Ghost synergistic?
Okay. I see. Well, Ghost is a 2. Oh, no. Ghost is... Dude, that's so crazy. Ghost... I always forget Ghost has popped up to a 3/5 now, man. That's wild. Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I think she's definitely more about late turn pop-offs. I don't even know if you'd have priority in a good amount of the decks that you're playing with. Like Surfer, you want it right? Negative, probably not either. You're going to be like building that up later. Now, I was thinking about this. On turn 1 and 2, what power assignment do you think is the most common you'll see?
I think 3.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. 3. Yeah, definitely 3, right? Like, yeah, you'll get a couple 2, but we got a lot of 2/3s in the game. Like, just a ridiculous amount of 2/3s in the game, especially being played right at this moment. Interesting, we have obviously some 2/5s. There are some unique things there. And there's going to be some deck matchups. Like, let's say you're in Conquest and you're going up against a certain deck where you're like, oh, man, Sage is going to pop no matter what. With what this guy's playing, maybe sometimes you let Nebula get the point. I don't know. Like, you can maybe manipulate it in some ways and kind of force to be playing on this. Or maybe you put Nebula in your own deck to force them to play on that lane so you can build that up. And that could easily be a synergized option for Sage. But all in all, we're going to have to see. This is truly one of those cards. I'm just curious of how it plays out, what decks play out. I am excited. I do love my combo cards. For the most part, this should be a pretty easy skip week, especially, it's Tribunal and Legion as well, which love Legion, but he's an S4. And Tribunal's good. Yeah, definitely Tribunal. I just don't know if I'd go all in on this week.
No, I definitely, it's probably one of the absolute weakest weeks. Tribunal, again, archetype defining card, but absolutely not necessary. And Legion, I mean, I like Legion, but that one power hit that it took and that one nerf, I think really took it out of the meta to some degree. I think it should be a 5/8 still, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I totally agree with your take on that. One thing I'll add before we move on from Sage is that my favorite thing about this card is the art. She's got a Vegeta scanner. The power is over 9,000.
Dude, she definitely, yeah, you're right, man. She got that. She does have a Vegeta scanner. I did want to add to move cards. I thought it was kind of unique. I think like Jeff, Nightcrawler, like building her up and then moving them. Not to deter our like 7th DBZ comment, but I do think there's kind of maybe a placement there for her as well. Just being able to get that unique cost going, and possibly even something like Juggernaut. If you're talking about turn 6 plays, you play Jug, you move all those cards they're going to play into a location you know is going to fill at that point. Then you play Sage in the other one. I think it's kind of cheeky.
That's a spicy idea. Yeah, Juggernaut's always a really spicy turn 6 play.
And Clog decks are doing really well too. So I was like, could Sage go in those styles of decks? Now we got a lot of unique cost there. But either way, we're going to move on, buddy. We're going to go to the OTA review. And I don't think anyone saw this OTA coming. I sure as hell did not. First, can I start with how crazy is it, bro? Hey, Valentina came out. We're doing all the 6-cost cards. On a random note, Ultron, I think, was the last card we did. And I was just like, it was the end of the podcast. I'm like, bro, I think we were ending the podcast. I was like, hey, bro, do you think the drones could get another power? Like, it was out of nowhere. And you were like, yeah, maybe. Or maybe they go up on power on Ultron. Bro, I cannot believe Ultron is a 24 power card baseline now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you actually legitimately called it like in passing last week, which is absolutely crazy. And I like the change. I actually really like the change. Is it too powerful? I think statistically it's showing that it's not overpowered. I think the main Ultron deck that I'm seeing in Infinite right now is running about a 56% win rate, which is not overbearing considering how many people are running it, how many people are not expecting it because it's so fresh and new. And keep in mind that Destroy's kind of on a bit of a downward slope right now. And so people aren't naturally running Killmongers because if you have Killmonger and they're playing Ultron-based decks, you know to give initiative then wipe the board, right? Oh, look at this split, Cozy. I don't want to get interrupted, but what is this absolute beauty?
Yo, listen, been a part of the UFC for a while, the Ultron fan club. I didn't need a buff to play my guy over here. And what I can tell you because of that, and I know a lot of people are, they're a little sad. I don't have an Ultron video out yet. I'm sorry. Rivals came out. It was a whole nother thing. It's coming. It's coming. I can tell you as an Ultron player myself, why I think this buff is going to be crazy even as we move on is, man, Surprise Ultron. And not even like the deck Surprise Ultron, but playing Ultron on Surprise. You know what he's not now? He's definitely not a surprise. Obviously, everyone's going to be playing him. So as time moves on and people kind of got their fun with him, dude, that is when he's going to strike. That is when he's going to be ridiculous. And I like him as this kind of like, this like get out of jail card. Like, man, I got nothing going on for me. And then you're like, you know what? Let's just see if an Ultron can get the dubs here at the end or whatever. But I appreciate the split love. I had to love him up early.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's funny because like Ultron was like non-existent in the meta, completely non-existent.
None.
Now it's to the point when I'm playing and someone plays Dazzler, I know what's up. Like as soon as they play Dazzler, I'm like, okay, I see you there. Yeah. I know what's coming. There ain't no surprise Ultron here, my man. I know what you're doing.
That was the thing. It wasn't just Ultron. We've had cards like this in the past. It wasn't just Ultron. It's that over months now, we've been getting other cards being buffed that have been buffed for Ultron. And like even something like Omega Red, I used to do a lot with like Dazzler, like way back when, like almost a year and a half ago now. And I'm like, dude, might as well throw that back into the fray. But yeah, I think the Ultron change was a really fun one and one that I hope they experiment with more on other cards. Like, hey, it's a good card. It's not awesome and it's not being played. Let's give it a little bit of love.
I know, I 100% agree. And it's like Ultron's not one of those cards that I think has the capability to dismantle the meta. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like it's not like a free buff the way I think they still should buff Mr. Fantastic. But I think that like overall, it's a buff that like ain't gonna hurt nobody, ain't gonna murder the meta. You know what I mean? It's a very fair look. And I'm actually impressed they went with the flavor of buffing the drones. They could have easily have given them the nice line of 6/9, right? They could have just gone there and people were like, oh, an Ultron buff, and they just start playing them. But to get the flavor right, to be like, you know what? No, he's about these drones. Give the drones the power.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
like that choice.
Yeah, for sure, man. What about this choice? Tell me if you like this choice. What on earth do you think about? I'm gonna let you lead the pack here, and I'm gonna give you the floor. I want you to kind of you get it all out there. What do you feel about the Leech change?
This is what I'm thinking. Okay, so second dinner sits at the table, right? They're trying to figure out this OTA. They're like, all right, guys, they're passing the bottle of wine around. They're trying to figure out the cards that they're going to buff. They're trying to figure out the cards they're going to nerf. The bottle of wine is now complete. They're about to call the meeting, and someone right at the end says, yo, what if we buff Leech?
Okay.
And everyone looks at them, they're like, bruh.
That
And
might
then somehow
just
it
be-
ends up in the notes.
You son
That's
of
how I
a-
think it went down.
You son of a bitch, that might be crazy enough to work. I thought, this is what I thought. I thought they got their cards and the warning labels, like this one's getting too good, right? And they're all at this conference table, and there's this like glass box, right? And in that is Leech, and there's a little hammer next to it. And it's like break in case of emergency. And they're like, guys, Hella's killing us. Like, what do we do? And someone's like, the box, Glenn, the box. And they're like, is it time? Do we do it? And again, the wine's getting passed around for sure. It's broken. They broke it right. It's like, screw it, break it open, get the 4 out, see what happens. Now I get it in a way of like, okay, yeah, Hella was doing her thing. All right, Hella was doing her thing. Dude, I was playing Leech. Funny enough, I was playing Leech the day before this. I was playing my very first Blink deck. I liked Blink I liked Leech as a 5. I was like, oh, it's a perfect 5 cost for Blink. I loved it. And I was playing more Leech than I usually do. And I was like, it's sneaky. Nobody's playing Leech right now. And then this happened. And I'm like, God damn, there that goes.
In my OTA video, I literally said, Cozy just released a video with Leech at like 5 cost with Blink, and it was working pretty well there. Like, I actually liked it. Now it's a perfect curve play. What have they done?
I know,
It's
dude.
like, and remember with Blink, if you rotate out Leech, you're guaranteed a 5 or 6.
Yeah,
That
I
is
know.
super valuable, man. You Leech and then you Blink, and then Red Hulk comes and just waves to their like demolished hand. Oh, it's so dirty. And like,
But-
I don't know, man. The way I see it is like, as you were describing, like kind of like Glenn looking to the glass case, I almost see Leech as like sitting in this like box, like a fire extinguisher would, and Glenn like smashing it and be like, "Hell is a problem, guys, but I've got the answer." And the alarms are going off at the
Oh, yeah.
second dinner place. They're like,
Leech
we gotta buff Leech. It's risky, but it was also fast enough. I wonder if internally they knew that Blink Hella was going to be disgusting. I just wonder, because I think they still need a week leeway on the OTAs. I believe they've said before. I don't have actual like confirmation on that, but I think they said patches are a month, OTAs are generally a week of leeway. It almost makes me feel they're like, you know what, man? Internally, I think Hella is too good with Blink. Let's get this Leech out here. It's a release valve, right?
Yep.
It's a release valve. Is it going to do its job? That's the question.
Bro, but I don't know about you, and this is like everybody who plays Marvel Snap. I swear, okay, someone plays Leech against me, I've got the full combo, right? I had everything. I'm like, here we go. It's a perfect YouTube video. And it dies. I play Leech against a Hella deck, right? All their cards are dead. They top deck Hella on turn 6. Like, it's every time. Like, every time. That's my experience playing Leech sometimes. I don't know about everyone else here. I know he's a card. I also think it's funny, man, to transition for a second. We've been playing Marvel Rivals. There's one character there that's the best by a far margin. It's the best character in the game, and it's Hella. We can't escape her, bro. Like, we cannot escape her. She's the best character in all of our Marvel games. What the hell?
You know, it's actually pretty wild. Hella has been like kind of terrorizing the meta for a while, and it kind of subsided for a little bit, I think, just not because it wasn't good, but because like I think what happens with Marvel Snap is like people kind of just want to play something new. They want to see what the new broken hotness is. And so that you have these decks that kind of go underappreciated for like ample amounts of time that people get to Infinite with all the time that just don't get played. Hella was one of them.
Yeah.
Shuri's another one. There's like these decks that people just don't play that like sneakily will get you to, and then all of a sudden you get this Blink buff or Blink inclusion to the game, the release, and it's like, wait a minute, this is good. You get a Hella deck, you add Jubilee, and you just swap Jubilee for like a Giganto. How can this ever go wrong?
Yeah.
And it barely ever does. And then all of a sudden the meta is broken once again, and Leech has to come to our rescue. It's bothering me that it only has 4 fingers, by the way.
He's a scary mother effer. I'll say this. I think that in all, Hella to me, doesn't have a lot of like knobs or adjustments that you can do, but she kind of does. I think the answer to her in a way is you set a cap on her revive. I don't think you can set it too low. You still have to have that pop off, if you will. What's the cap, you know?
No, I have no idea because remember, you have Ghost Rider that does that. Ghost Rider's basically
Well,
that with
just
the
the
cap.
one, yeah, but it would be like 4.
Yeah, maybe, but even then, like 4, it's still a Giganto, a Red Hulk, and an Infinite. Like
Yeah.
that's just 3. That's just
Yeah.
3 already. It's huge. Maybe you just revive like you play Hela, and then 2 revivals go to the other location. So
What-
it gives like you get a limited number of revives. However, they're more consistent. You're able to target it a bit better.
Maybe-
Like you only get 2. But like you know where they're gonna go, not like no, but one of them's gonna go here and the other one's gonna go here because it can't go in the location you play Hela.
Or just 3 revives, but you bump her stats, right? And then you make it better. Like she's a 6'8" with 3 revives. Or she's and that way you can look at it like Ultron in some ways. You still have that randomness to you. I think you can go a couple ways with this. I do think you could go. I think they're trying to figure. I'm sure Hela's in their radar. There's no way, man. I mean, they have Leech, like so. She's in the radar. I think she's due for an adjustment.
You know what would be hilarious? This would be such a troll buff that somehow could work if someone really tried hard. Hela gets plus 10 if she gets discarded.
Oh, dude,
So she gets discarded and you have to play Ghost Rider to pull the Hela back to get the value.
just gets
But
like
then
a
like it's
nasty-
like the backup plan for when you like accidentally Corvus your own Hela.
Yeah, dude. Okay, all right. I dig it. What I don't dig is Darkhawk. The man can't catch a break. The man
Yeah, this
cannot.
sucked.
He can't catch a break. I said this. I'm like, truly, and I was waiting for the comments. Truly, tell me, guys, have you been playing against Darkhawk? Like, have you been losing to Darkhawk decks out there? In fact, I was like, I made a deck. I felt like I was cooking. I was like, I got a Darkhawk deck that's working. I love it. I think I'm convinced, man. I'm convinced there's this Marvel Snap we don't have access to, where Angel, Captain America, Mr. Fantastic, and Darkhawk are just running supreme. It must
For
be.
engagement, they should nerf Captain America. I'd love to see
Oh
it.
my
Just nerf
God.
him. Make him a 3-1.
Dude, see,
Take a power off
that's
him.
the difference. If I ran the game, I feel like April 1st, April Fools, I'd be like, you guys, listen, we're going to have to power back Captain America. We're going to make him a -1. We feel like he's just a bit too toxic for the meta today, and it could change. We might even go lower. Why not?
Yeah, I was dying when I saw that Darkhawk got changed. I was like, first of all, I think the meta share was like 2.5%. And I was like, okay, first of all, you just said it's the best card in the game internally. So now people, even with that -1 power, are just going to play a ton of Darkhawk now because you just tipped off that it's really good.
Yeah.
Secondly, so this was the question I had, and I brought it up in mine. I was like, what's the point of the balance attack? Like, what's your actual goal? Is it a balanced meta, or are you trying to attack the overperforming cards? Because listen, at 2.5%, Darkhawk, not problematic. Maybe there was 1 or 2 dudes out there that figured out the most broken Darkhawk deck in the world, and they had the spiciest brews crushing it, and they like that's fine. And if they did that, they deserve to climb with it. But Darkhawk was not a problem. I was not facing a lot of Darkhawk. I play this game literally way too much. An unhealthy amount of Marvel Snap gets played in my household.
Yeah.
And Darkhawk was not bothering me. And so when you're doing these balance patches, what is your attack vector? Are you trying to I don't want you to say disable the cards that are performing so well, but are you trying to reduce the win rate of cards that are performing? There's always going to be a #1 best card in Marvel Snap, or are you trying to protect the meta? Because
Nope.
Darkhawk was not meta problematic.
No, and that's what is puzzle scratching. We'll get these Ultron changes, and then it's just like there's a puzzle behind it. And it's kind of like, what's funny is what I don't want to see the most, man, is 4 weeks down the line. Hey guys, we decided to take Darkhawk back up to a 5/4 because what just happened with Sauron? What just happened? I said this as my loser of the patch a few months back. I said, Psylocke, what are we doing taking her back down? They took her down. People adjusted. Okay, we'll play with Ravonna. We'll find new decks for her, Back up to 2/2 she went. I get it. I think those cards should have been there and could have stayed there. I just don't want to see these like flip-flops. I get that's why OTAs are there. But there are some cards when the entire community is like head scratching about it. It's just, like what are they solving,
There's one thing that kind of came to mind that I wonder if it could be an answer is Erisham, which is going to add the additional cards to the deck later this month. At the end of this month, the last card to release. So I wonder if that had a role to play in potentially Darkhawk being changed, because you're going to be stuffing your deck with a ton of cards. And so Darkhawk would be a very natural counter to that new card coming out in Series 5.
Yeah, but like, it's not gonna like run the meta, you know? You wouldn't think so. That's a good point, though. That is a good point. I just don't think that. And like, Thanos is not dead, but you know, he's obviously not.
When was the last time you get played against someone who's no? I should no. Now that I think about it, I've been playing against a lot of Thanos. Last week I went off about how the hot locations are complete nonsense, and then I'm actually tilted. Give me the second. Okay, last week we talked about how hot locations are complete bullshit, and then you know what they did? They released 2 new cards. They released Nocturne and they released Blink. I was having so much fun playing Marvel Snap, and then they released a hot location the next day that was Quantum Tunnel. I was in shambles. Not only that, but it was Twitch drops. So I played like 16 hours of Marvel Snap with a hot location. I was literally in emotional distress. Cozy. Honestly, man, I couldn't believe it after the last week. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Everybody, introducing our brand new segment, weekly segment. We had it last week. It's this week, too. It's our 2-minute drill on why we hate hot and featured locations in the game. And we'll see you right here next week. Oh, all together. Did we forget anybody? We had one nerf. That also made sense. Lady Deathstrike. I do think I was not mad about this one. I was like, all right, you can take the PowerPoint off. It makes sense just where the meta's at. Clog is still doing great. She fit into that deck. She fit in against, like, just pure... She's just a good card, man. She's a good card to throw into a lot of decks there. And that one, I was like, okay. See, that one makes sense. We saw a huge uptick in her in the meta, and we saw her in a lot of decks. This one, I wasn't as salty about.
I was still kind of salty about this one. Like, not crazy salty. I was way saltier about the... But this one here, I was like, man, again, Lady Deathstrike, I think it was at like a 7% meta share. It was a part of one of the absolute top performing packages with the Pixie Deathstrike based decks. So I totally see that. But it was an answer to the junk meta, right?
Yep.
It was a card that has seen absolutely no play prior to like the 2 weeks that it became relevant, right? So like, why not give Lady Deathstrike a little bit more time? No, I didn't see anybody on Twitter saying, LDS, damn it, I'm uninstalling Marvel Snap. Like, I didn't see that.
So I agree. But here's my point to that, is I'm not playing her in the lane, and I'm like, man, I'm hoping I win by 1 more power. I get every power point matters. I get it. But, like, I'm aiming to destroy the stuff below 3, and that's what she does still. Like, you know, I personally didn't have a game where I'm like, oh, the 1 power. The power difference, you know, I usually, like, I'm killing their deck, and then that's it. I get your point, though, as it, like, letting cards cook a little bit more, if that's, like, the main driving point.
Let her have her time in the sun, man.
Yeah,
look at this beautiful... LDS had seen no play whatsoever.
None. Well,
all right? Like, give her a little bit of time to cook, man.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. But, like, the deck was absolutely crushing it. Like, it was legitimately a step above some of the other ones. I don't know where the hell this Darkhawk deck was. I mean, it was crushing Lady Deathstrike. I didn't see it out there, but
Spider-Man
LDS had to take a bullet here.
Lastly, Alex, we have Claw, who finally got a buff, dude, in the OTA, man. What are you thinking about the Claw buff? We always talked about him. Remember, we always like, Claw should get a buff. After Miss Marvel came out, Claw should get a buff. +8. +8 now. He's a 5/12. Have you been playing Claw?
And you know what? I kind of joked about this, but Claw's one of those cards I almost never, ever play.
Yeah.
I respect it. I like it, but I never put it in my decks. And ever since this buff, I've been putting him in, and he's still somewhat awkward at times, but that +8 is huge. It's pure power, man. It's pure power. It doesn't matter what that location on the other side is. Negative zone, Death's Domain, Altar of Death. It doesn't matter what that location is. Wow, I sound like The Rock there. But honestly, the Claw just gets it done.
Pure power, and then on top of that, like, you don't have to worry about like a Jeff going over there anymore. Like, you know, it's just like it's beating out that lane, and you have like a much more comfortable power position. I just want to know what he's doing with his teeth. Like, what's going on? He's looking at his hand, and he's like, what is that? What does that look? He's not angry. He's just like, what is that?
I don't know. I don't know what his he has those leech eyes, man. What the hell?
Absolutely, man. Well, altogether though, I did think it was I'm gonna say it was a good OTA. It was definitely spicy. You know, definitely spicy in good ways, fun ways, maybe some bad ways for sure. But we're going to move on to the last subject, man. And this subject is going to be about leagues. We're not, you know, we don't need to go on I went on a little bit of a tangent on my OTA, just said I absolutely didn't agree with it. If you guys don't know, leagues is in beta over, I think it ended now, but it was over in UK. And it's, you know, you don't have to do anything extra. You can just play the game and you go up a leaderboard, and you can get rewards. But there's a major but here. You can buy perks. You can get perks, Alex. How do you get perks, Alex? Well, buddy, you spend gold to get perks. And yeah, when you have a leaderboard, when you have rewards, that weren't even that good, but when you have a leaderboard, when you have rewards, it just compromises the environment, right? It's like, hey, NFL, guys, go in the playoffs, battle it out. By the way, if you pay the NFL another $1 million, you get another shot. Like, it's just stupid. It doesn't belong. And I'm not definitely going to say it's the first time I was massively disappointed. We are starting to see, dude, I'm getting frustrated, man. I'm getting frustrated with a game that I love, a game that has literally taken over my life, a game that I think about 24/7. And you know, I haven't talked to developers in a while now, but people that I expect to look at something like that and know, that it's just not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. I don't know how that passes, and I hate to see it.
The most powerful card in Marvel Snap can never be the credit card.
It's a Visa, yeah.
It's that simple. It can never be the credit card. And I think the current iteration of leagues just proves that it is. And that's super problematic. You can't have that happening, Cozy. You know what I mean? And you're right 100%. Like, there's got to be a voice of reason somewhere where it's saying, like, hey, guys, first of all, good choice making this a beta, because if we release this worldwide, people would have lost their minds. So, like, I think they need to take some lessons back from it and definitely reconsider what that looks like. Thankfully, that's not the mode that we've been waiting for. When I saw, I'm like, please not this be the mode we've been waiting for. And they're like, no, don't worry, guys. This isn't the mode we're working on. This was like an extra little thing we were trying out. So that gives me some solace. But honestly, I didn't get it. I'm not in it, but just knowing enough about it and seeing what it was, I was disappointed with the implementation.
It's just silly. It's just silly because it's not even like big rewards or anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't make it any better that it's not good rewards. It's just at the bottom. The bottom line is, I've seen now, hey, you can get, card borders. Great. I don't care. Listen, if you want to spend your money on that, go for it. I will tell you guys straight up, I bought in one. It was a gold frame for Agent Coulson. That is the only one I've bought in, period. I don't care if you bought in 100. I have no judgment against you as a human. You spend your money, you damn well please. But what I will say is, it was like, oh, we plan on implementing these somewhere later, or we've seen this time and time again. And it's just, I'm just disappointed is the best way to say it. Guys, we're going on YouTube. You have a massive success of a game. You have a massive success of a following. And we gotta start moving. We gotta start doing things and taking steps in the right direction.
Couldn't agree more, man. My favorite game on the planet, the game that's completely changed my life professionally, from like an entertainment standpoint. I've met one of my best friends playing this game, sitting right across from me virtually. Yeah. And one thing that has consistently come up is this monetization, which seems like it is just shooting itself in the foot at every given opportunity. And the gameplay's there. I mean, I think every single person that plays Marvel Snap agrees that this is the best playing card game on the planet, close to being one of the best playing games on the planet. There isn't a person out there that says that this game does not play well. It's everything on the periphery that seems to be happening that is causing the complaints, which I think is exactly what you're saying. It is the thing that you're feeling, and I think it's really unfortunate for a game that's as good as it is. And
I think we have been super fair. We have defended things. We have said, like, hey, they need to make money, because they did. In the early years, like, we were saying that, let them gather up. Like, we totally get it. We need the game to stay. It is a free game. We've said that, before, and all these points remain. That's fine. But at the end of the day, there's got to be this middle ground in this community that I really care about. I don't want to see separated off of reasonings that it doesn't have to. And probably, I think the ultimate thing where people are like, what about the leagues? Yes, it has to do with the paying to win kind of thing. But the other half of it is, we know that the dev team is limited to a degree, right? They don't have 1 million people working there and popping out new stuff all the time. So when we see something, we have to take it as face value of like, oh, that's what they've been spending the time on here, right? Like, that's just what we have to assume. And so I know there's a new game mode. I know it doesn't get made overnight. But the bottom line is, we have to assume that is where the resources are going. Why are they going there?
That is without question one of the most disappointing parts. It's like, really, this is where the human resources went to, right? A feature that really just just made the game feel like a complete pay-to-win disaster. And I think you're absolutely correct. I think you're absolutely correct. And I just hope that they got the feedback they needed to make the best choices they can. To, if they're going to keep that mode in the game, they need to make it much more fair. It needs to have some sort of integrity, because if there's no competitive integrity in a league-based mode, I mean, then basically it's basically like every soccer league out there that pays off the refs, I guess.
Yeah, right, dude. End of the day is I just want to have fun with the game, and like, it's the internet. People are people. You can't offend me. Come at me, guys. I really don't mind it. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm seeing less and less like having fun, and that's why that is why I created a YouTube channel, was to have fun with people in game, and it's more of like F second dinner, F you, whatever it is, and I'm like, I get it, dude. I get where you're coming from. That sucks. I want to have fun again with it, and I'm having fun, but I want to, have that fun, and that's just the reality of the situation around the snapness right now. So, sorry to go on. We never love to end it on like a talk, but also beyond passionate about the game, about the community, about the direction of the game, and it's out of our hands, that's for sure. And we're gonna keep on, trying to put out the fun content.
Sad part about it is like, yeah, we're absolutely passionate. We love this game. And the people that engage most and have the most passionate responses to things like this are the people that are most invested in the game itself. And so they want the game to be successful. They want it to be fair. They want it to continue in the future. They know it needs to make money. But what I will say is the changes that have been happening here with the bundles being so expensive, and we're starting to get back some decent gold bundles at least, but it's taken a while to get there. I find myself spending way less money than I used to. I hate to say it, I used to buy everything. And now I'm like, I'm not spending $140 Canadian on a variant anymore, guys. Like, especially 100%. when you rug pull the value of gold by giving me a bunch of garbage ass bundles for 4 months. I'm just not doing it. I'm sitting on like 50,000 gold, and I'm not buying anything else, because I don't trust its value. And I think that, so if you get aggressive with the monetization, you start to turn people off. I bet you that hurts the bottom line as well. There has to be a fair line. And
here is the final point I want to make around this. Sometimes to me, it's not even about the money. It's about what comes along with it. We haven't had the modes. We haven't had the stuff coming alongside where it's actual playable stuff, right? Or a new mode or whatever. And that is where you can easily throw this stuff in there. If we got a game mode 6 months from Conquest or 8 months from Conquest or whatever, not a year because it hasn't been that, no one cares. I think we're like, dude, if you had a game mode in there that's amazing, you throw in some expensive bundles, it's like, okay, borders, we got this mode going on, whatever. It's that I think is the ultimate thing around it. And I am hoping to God, second dinner, that you guys hit a home run for this next game mode. I'll be your biggest fan if you do, and I will definitely talk about it if you don't, because it's going to be we'll get there when we get there, guys. Anyway, what we're also getting to is Alex's side of the Snapchat. We're going to be talking about Nocturne. We're going to be talking about Blink in review. We're going to be talking about series drops and the Snapchat mailbag. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us today on this beautiful Monday. If you haven't already, subscribe to both Alex and myself, and it means a lot if you review the Snapchat on Spotify, Apple Music, and all that good stuff. Anyway, guys, have a good one. Have a great one. Till the next one. Happy snapping.